I would say the first thing that I find really interesting is this leapfrogging of the Philippines to mobile. It seems we completely bypassed this whole desktop and laptop. What you're seeing, or at least what I'm seeing, is that a lot of Filipinos' first interaction with the internet was a mobile app. Well, the app has actually become a gateway. Well, the phone has become a gateway to the internet, but then the app has become a gateway. And the implications of this are wide. What you basically have is you've put into the hands of every citizen a supercomputer, right? More powerful than what was used to land the Apollo 11 on the moon. And what this supercomputer does is it gives that citizen access. Okay. Now, access can mean many things. A lot of people call it interconnectivity, but I see it much more than that. Now, what you really give the person is digital inclusion. You give him access to information. Another thing that happened with this leapfrogging is the rise of new innovative business models. So without the phone, all of these location-based services wouldn't exist. The second thing that really interests me is the progression of electronic payments. And I would say a lot of this has been driven by a very progressive government. We've seen amazing milestones in the last few years. You have chips appearing on all our ATM cards. You have electronic automated switches now that allow banks to connect to banks as well as e-wallets. And all of this, by the way, has been mandated. And so which means that what you're seeing is a lot of government progressiveness, but also a lot of private sector collaboration. Now you're seeing a unified QR code. So I think it's a very progressive and very responsive to what's going on. And I'm very excited about e-payments, especially since I run an e-commerce company where 80% of our orders today are cash on delivery, which really surprised me when I moved back to the Philippines, having done e-commerce in the US, where we would never consider a cash on delivery order as e-commerce. Right? I think the third development that really interests me is what I call the democratization of distribution and consumption. So what I feel that digital platforms have enabled is to level the playing field for the small business so that it can compete now with the big business. And how does it do this? By lowering the startup cost and the time to startup and the cost of startup, as well as the operating cost. No longer will an entrepreneur or business need to build all the components that you need to run, for example, an online store. You will no longer need to bring in a customer care team, your own tech team. You may not even need a graphics team, for example, because you can use all these drag and drop features. So you really, what I've seen is this. It's easier now. The gatekeeper, which historically was the retailer, doesn't have the same power, because now any entrepreneur can sell any goods and services they want online. The other piece of that equation is the democratization on the consumer side. Philippines is one of the leaders in the BPO industry, and if you're working from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., why should you go shopping when the mall says that that these are the shopping hours? You want to do it anytime you want. And so you've increased basically the options by which a customer can access goods and services. You've also exploded the choices. And basically a customer now has the power to choose, not based on who is on the corner of the main street, but actually who is providing the best service, the best product, the best quality. So I think these three things, this transition, this leapfrog to mobile, the growth in electronic payments, and the democratization of both distribution and consumption. Actually, I wouldn't say the mall was the old social hub. I would say the old social hub was the social network.
Yeah.
Right. The mall, the social activity in the mall, in my opinion, will continue to exist. A lot of people ask me, is retail or offline retail dead? And my response to this is that no, there's offline retail is not dead. What is dead is what is challenged are bland retail experiences. And you're starting to see this, by the way, if you look at what's happening in the mall. The ground floor or first floor stores tend to be experiential, massive footprints, and actually the retailers running very small stores with almost no experience, just clothes on a rack, they're moving to the third or fourth floor, right? When you look at the explosion of malls, what you see, well, at least what I'm seeing, is it's not the traditional mall that is increasing in number. It is actually the more hypermart or community center type setups, where your center area is a food court, probably with a supermarket and a hardware, and then an array of services. It could be some government services, could also be the guy who repairs your shoe, right? I think that format will continue to grow because it will take a while for any of those services to have a very high e-commerce penetration. I would like to call out two. The first one is AI. And I know AI is a fancy word, and a lot of people imagine, C3PO walking around. I'm talking about basically, when I think of AI, I think of algorithms using data that is custom. For example, personalization is something that we've done at Lazada that benefits from this AI. Right. So today, when you open your Lazada app, it looks different from the person beside you. And the more you browse and the more you purchase, it gets smarter, right? And so this is basically the whole underlying principle in this type of personalization is the system is anticipating what you want, right? And this is something that's going to get better and better. Today, for example, if you look at our homepage, probably only half the modules there are personalized. We want to get to a point where that's all personalized. All the data is out there. You just need to run an algorithm on it and then some kind of technology to push a personalized experience. I think that we will start to see a higher use of electronic payments. Okay, meaning that, and this will be driven by, meaning that if something is bought online, the likelihood that it will be paid by an electronic method will be high, if not 100%. Right? Today, we obviously have to keep cash on delivery alive because without cash on delivery, there would not have been any e-commerce. The cash on delivery was to address both the lack of electronic payment penetration, but also to address trust. And today, you still see a lot of people who have an electronic form of payment, who have a bank account, a credit card, and maybe even an e-wallet that continue to use cash on delivery. And when you ask them why, they say that it's a trust issue, right? But as e-payments are used for everything down the road, the trust problem will fade, and we will be able to switch a lot of e-commerce to e-payments. And how will this be driven? I mean, aside from the fact that trust will improve, it will be driven by interconnectivity of e-payment methods. Today, many people who have a bank account cannot pay electronically because they cannot connect it. Okay, or many services online don't take an electronic payment. That whole interconnectivity. And then there will be an explosion in electronic accounts. I would say the digital banks will take the lead in showing the banking sector what is possible, right? And they will be more aggressive in connecting use cases and funding sources. And then the rest of the banks will have to follow. And so all of this will result in an increase in electronic accounts. Payments is one of the key areas of stagnation. Okay, why? Because we're doing a lot of activities to drive electronic payments in a very small set of the economy, whereas the rest of the economy is still, there's no view on even going electronic, right? You go to a fast food restaurant here and you have to use cash. It's mandatory to use cash. So even if you've encouraged me to use e-payments, I've connected my account and everything, but then I walk out the door, I go across the street, and then I need to use cash. And so that has to change, right? I feel that the way to switch customers or Filipinos from cash to electronic is you need to address two main things. One is cost, and the other one is convenience. Okay, cost. I'm of the opinion today, and I'm speaking from my own experience in Lazada, that businesses don't appreciate the true cost of cash in the terms of what it costs to handle it, to collect it, to reconcile it, and to insure it. Right? So to the point that if you go into an appliance dealer today, they will explicitly tell you on the price tag that if you pay with your card, you need to pay more than if you pay cash. Okay. To me, this very clearly tells me that that business feels that it costs them more to handle an electronic payment. If businesses properly understood the cost of cash, I think that what they need to do is reflect that cost in when the customer pays, right? That way, you align that cost implication to the cost borne by the customer.